Good afternoon. It is Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock, so it must be time for the Senior Moment. This is Connie Clark with Home Helpers, and I'd like to welcome you. This afternoon, I have a very special guest with me today. It's Kirsten Hess, and she's with the American Red Cross. And we're going to talk about some of the special programs the American Red Cross has pertaining to veterans and military personnel. But you were telling me earlier that the history of the American Red Cross goes back to the military in its formation. Welcome, and tell us about that.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much, Connie. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. And you're right, the Red Cross was actually founded on service to armed forces more than 100 years ago. And, we had volunteers going out on the battlefield delivering emergency communication messages to service members. Luckily, we do that much more efficiently these days, but it is what Red Cross was founded on, and it's very amazing to still be a part of that today.
Oh, interesting. I wasn't aware that they were the message carriers.
We were.
Wow.
We are.
Wow. And so today there are a number of different programs that the American Red Cross has pertaining to both current and previous military personnel. Is that true?
Yes, we have a number of direct service and outreach to military members, families, and veterans in the area.
Okay. And we were going to talk specifically of the veterans, some of the services and things you have going on. What are the programs? And you were saying one of them is an offshoot of a federal program.
Yes, that's right. And veterans are a wonderful place to start. One of our favorite outreach activities at the Red Cross. And one of our newest programs, what we were talking about earlier, is the Veterans History Project, or our spinoff of that is called the Veterans Legacy Project of the Inland Northwest. If you're familiar with the Veterans History Project, it's through the Library of Congress, and it's designed to capture stories of American war veterans before they're lost. And so those stories are archived with the Library of Congress, and many are used by researchers writing books or historical papers looking for historical facts and data. And so for us, it was an opportunity for us to utilize that program and really localize it for our veterans here.
And that's interesting that you said that people use that data in the National Archives for research. I would never have thought of that, but that's really interesting. And it's true because our World War II veterans are leaving us. We've already lost the World War I veterans. Mm-hmm. And so it's really important to capture those stories because otherwise they're gone.
It's so important. And what we found through we have outreach programs at the Spokane Veterans Home and also at the Spokane VA Medical Center. We have volunteers that are in there almost every day of the week. And what we were finding is that just in having conversation with these hospitalized veterans, we were hearing stories that sometimes they hadn't shared in 60 years.
Well, and I know my father never shared anything with us, his family, but I know he had such interesting stories, and I'm very sad that that's gone. All of that history's gone.
And that was kind of our impetus for starting this program. You know, it's so interesting that sometimes it's easier to talk to a complete stranger than it is to your family, but mm-hmm. What we found with these older veterans is that, I think the memories have softened enough, the edges of those memories have softened enough for them to start to share and talk about it. And so, like I said, we were hearing these amazing stories from, just selfless, humble people and recognizing that this was so important to capture. And so the Veterans History Project kind of gave us the vehicle to be able to do that, but for us it's much more important to be able to record those stories for them and provide that to their families. I mean, again, something that
my dad's is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wish someone would have been around to capture that, and I never even mm-hmm. thought to ask him about stuff like that, because he was so stoic in, never mentioning anything about the war.
I think in that generation, people came home from war and they wanted to get married and get a job and settle into life and just kind of put that past them. And it wasn't something they talked about.
Mm-mm. So when your volunteers go in there, to get these stories? Do they just record it on the voice part, or do they record the video of the person, or what is the process for that?
We do both, whatever the veteran is comfortable with. We have an amazing volunteer who has been capturing a lot of these stories for us. He's a veteran himself and just has a wonderful way of being able to really draw out the veteran stories. And so generally what we'll do is go in and do a pre-interview with the veteran and, just kind of go over some questions, but really just do this, have a conversation with them. And then we'll go back a week or so later and actually film them. Luckily, we have a professional videographer that has donated his services. And so we're able to put together just an amazing product for the veteran and their family.
So what you said, the veteran and their family, what do you do with the product that you're producing?
We actually record it onto a DVD. Mm-hmm. And make a label that has, it's personalized with their name, their unit, their dates of service, and then provide that DVD to the family. And then the interviews that qualify for the Veterans History Project by length of the interview, then we also send into the Library of Congress for that program as well.
So the ones that go to the Library of Congress, they have to be a specific length?
They do have to be 30 minutes. At least.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So if your interview with a person and the story is only 15 minutes, that wouldn't qualify. But if they talked 35, 45 minutes, then that would qualify to be sent.
Yes. And if that's their desire, we'll do that. But again, for us, it was really bringing it to that local level and just being able to provide an opportunity for the veterans to tell their story and just, a lot of times find healing in that process, but also be able to provide that to the families.
Very interesting. And how do you find, I know you go to the VA hospital and to the Spokane VA home, but how do you find who wants to talk?
We just grab them off the streets.
Come here, talk to me. No, because I'm sure that there are people in those different institutions who don't want to talk to you.
There are, and it's interesting. When we first started the project, it almost felt sometimes like we were pulling teeth, really kind of trying to, really having to sell the program or drag people into it. Mm-hmm. But now it's interesting.
People are volunteering?
They are. We're getting calls and emails just out of the blue with people that have heard about the project and are ready to tell their story or just want more information about it.
Does it have to be somebody in either one of those facilities? Can it just be someone off the street, like you said?
Yes, and we've interviewed in people's homes. We've set up interviews at the Red Cross office so people can come in there, whatever's most comfortable for them. So, no, they certainly don't have to be, a hospitalized veteran.
And it can be probably any veteran from any period. It could be some of the service people that are coming home now.
Absolutely.
That want to talk.
Yes.
Very interesting, very interesting. I really do wish that I would have been able to capture that information. At one of the funerals of one of my father's sisters, there were 10 children in his family. One of my cousins contacted me and said one of the people that came to the service for my dad's sister, and my dad was already gone by then, started telling stories about my dad. He came to the service knowing that was my father's sister and was telling them stories about my dad.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my God, I wish I was there, my goodness, to hear the stories my dad never told. Mm-hmm. So it's really important for families to get that information while they can, because once they're gone, it's gone. That is so neat. What other kind of programs does the American Red Cross have to do with veterans? Because that's just one of the outreach programs, correct? You have a number of things going on over there.
We do. We stay pretty busy. I mentioned our Visiting Vets program at the VA hospital and also programs at the Spokane Veterans Home. The Visiting Vets program at the VA hospital is on its, almost fourth year now. We have volunteers that are going in 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons. And we push a hospitality cart around, and it's filled with snacks and goodies and, everything the nutritionists probably tell the veterans they shouldn't have.
But, at that point, it's like, eat what you want,
Yeah. But it's got, hygiene items and puzzle books and electronic games and craft kits and basically anything we can think of that would be of use or interest to a hospitalized vet. But the cart is really just kind of our vehicle to get into the room. The program's infinitely more about the outreach and just bringing a smile and a warm touch to somebody that is probably sort of having a bad day, And it's absolutely amazing to see the change in countenance of these veterans that, are just sitting in these sterile rooms. The TV might be on or it might be off because it's a regional medical center. A lot of people come from great distances and they don't get a lot of visitors. And a 5-minute conversation with somebody can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. It's something you mentioned that because it is a regional facility, you've got people traveling hours to come there. And even if they do have family, that family is probably hours away.
Yes.
So they cannot come and visit on a regular basis. And so they're kind of off by themselves. How many volunteers do you have that do that?
That's one of our most popular programs. We probably have between 25 and 30 volunteers that rotate through the month. Yeah.
And that's for the VA hospital and the Veterans Home?
That program is at the VA hospital.
Okay.
And then we have a separate program at the Spokane Veterans Home just because it's a different facility and
different rules and stuff.
Yeah. Always.
But is that the same type thing where you have people coming in just visiting to see how they're doing, sit and have a talk with them?
We do have that. I could spend all day, every day there. It's just some of my favorite people.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. I agree with you on that one.
But at the Veterans Home, we have a couple unique programs there. We do a monthly activity that usually centers around some kind of craft and then also some kind of goodie because, everybody loves goodies. So, for instance, last month we made pine cone bird feeders and Rice Krispie treats. We've done things like homemade pulled taffy, popcorn balls. We've made sugar cookie cutouts. We had a chocolatier come in and make truffles with them. Let me tell you, seeing 90-year-olds roll out truffles, I don't know if any actually got made, but a lot of it sure got eaten, and they just loved it.
Oh, that sounds great.
So it's just an opportunity to bring in volunteers. We have a lot of volunteers that bring their children or grandchildren, and it's just, an opportunity for us to come in and engage them. And I'll tell you, we all talk about just how heartwarming it is, and we almost feel guilty for the pleasure that we get out of it,
I understand. And here's a group of people who put their life on the line for all of us, and now they're coming towards the end of theirs, and a lot of them are by themselves. I mean, there are a lot of older people that are by themselves, but this group in particular that have done this for us, that's
our way to
the least we can do.
The very least
is
our way to
visit
just
them
give
and
back
stuff
and say thank you.
That you just blow my mind, talking about all these things that you all are doing, because it is so very important. It is so very important. What other kinds of things? You guys are busy over there.
We are. One of the other things we do at the Spokane Veterans Home is a monthly barbecue. And so we'll have...
You have to tell me these dates when you have all these fun things going on over there. I may find an excuse.
You should. You should come join us.
It's a great place. I've been to the Spokane Veterans Home.
Oh, my gosh. It is an amazing... I can't even call it a facility. It's a home. It really is. And the residents call it home. The staff there, everything. I just can't believe the care that they get there. I mean, well-deserved, but...
And a lot of it, I think, is paid for. Depending on the veteran's financial situation. that's part of one of the benefits that they get
I hope so.
as being a veteran. Yeah. So that's what else do you do?
But
Barbecues,
well, I'll tell you
huh?
about the monthly barbecues.
Okay.
They're pretty fantastic.
Okay.
We come in and we grill up, steaks and potatoes because that's what they like.
Absolutely.
And we have volunteers that come in and we just play waiter and waitress. We greet them when they come in the door. They eat family style in the dining room. And so we usually have 10 to 15 volunteers there. We greet them as they come in. We get their drinks and soup and salad and then serve their lunch. And then, the best part is that volunteers get their own plate and then sit down and just enjoy lunch with them, enjoy conversation. And one of the things that we've started this year is partnering with the squadrons on Fairchild Air Force Base. And so we've had a squadron sponsor the barbecue each month, which means they bring in 12 to 15 active duty volunteers and serve lunch to the veterans. And I'll tell you, it is absolutely amazing to see 19-year-old airmen sit down. I'm sorry.
No, we're going to take a break for a moment, and we'll be right back. Well, that was a good point. We can take a break.
I feel like I'm all over the place, though.
No, we're good. That's the way conversation is.
I would like to give some examples of the
stories.
The stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that. Okay. Sounds good. Well, you tell me when you're ready.
Oh, I'm ready. I mean, I'm going to get emotional just because of this, but
that's okay. Okay, you ready? And we are back. And this is Connie Clark with Home Helpers on the Senior Moment, and we're talking to Kirsten Hess with the American Red Cross, and we're talking about some of the veteran outreach programs that the American Red Cross has here locally. And we were talking about the monthly barbecue that they have at the Spokane Veterans Home, and about how that they bring in, there's a squadron each month that sponsors that from Fairchild Air Force Base, and they actually bring in active duty people to run it. Is that the right word?
Yeah, they come in and serve lunch to the veterans and then sit down and just enjoy the meal with them. And I'm sorry I got a little choked up, but it is just so amazing to see these young airmen sit down and have lunch with a 90-year-old World War II vet and find common ground there.
And listen to their stories.
But just, it's wonderful, I mean, these are the men and women upon whose shoulders they stand.
Mm-hmm.
And they find a commonality there, and you can just see both sides, how much they gain from that. And the veteran smiles are just fantastic.
Oh, I bet.
The staff say they, it's the happiest that they are.
That is so neat. I'm definitely going to have to come over there.
You should
You're going to have to pull me
us.
over there, yeah. Because that just, I'm drawing a picture, and it's really a good one. We were talking earlier about the Legacy Project that you're doing here locally, and about the stories that you're having the veterans tell, and you're capturing that information digitally. Say that word fast. And what are some of the stories that you're hearing?
Well, one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking about your dad and just, having lost that, we just lost an amazing veteran at the vet's home last week. He was there for about 5 years, and we just really developed a wonderful relationship with him. And unfortunately, we weren't able to interview him. He had a speech. He's phasic, and so it was very difficult for him to speak. But just had a wonderful relationship with him. And when we attended his service a few weeks ago, his daughter had written up a wonderful kind of synopsis of his life story. And I just want to tell you a quick story about him. He was, young 18-year-old, joined the Navy to see the world, except that, he figured out pretty quickly that the world was a little bit too far from home and far from his mom. And so this was pre-World War II. And
wow.
he, our entry into World War II.
Oh,
so
okay.
He joined the Navy, a 17, 18-year-old kid, was stationed in San Diego, and found out that his ship was going to be stationed in Hawaii. Well, he and a buddy just felt like that was way too far from home.
Okay.
And I mean, literally everybody was super excited that, their ship was going to Hawaii, except these two. Well, so they easily found a couple of guys on another ship to change places with, a ship that was staying in San Diego. And so they did. They swapped ships.
Okay.
So the ship that he was originally assigned to was the Arizona.
Oh, my goodness. I just got chills through my body.
And I get goosebumps just saying
wow. It wasn't to be. There were plans still for him.
Yep. And he went on to serve 16 or 17 years between the Navy and the Marine Corps. He actually played in the Marine Corps Symphonic Band and played at Eisenhower's inauguration and just had a very storied career. But that's how it started. And so, I think about things like that as you're talking about your dad and just how important it is that those stories are shared. And
well, I know my ex-father-in-law, he was scheduled to get on a plane to go overseas, and something happened and he got hurt and couldn't get on that plane, and that plane was shot down.
Wow.
So it's the same type thing. There were still stories to be written about them, and it wasn't time. Wow, that's interesting. What other kinds of stories do you get to hear? Because I'm sure you all hear so many interesting like that. I mean, you told me that, and immediately there was like this chill went up my body, One
of the stories I share quite often came from a gentleman that lives in Spokane Valley, and he's a World War II vet as well. He was actually in theater when the war ended. And so we asked him about that in his interview. My goodness, what was that like? You've been in country for, how many months or years at that point? What was it like to hear that the war was over? And so he told us this great story about how he and his unit were camped out by this river. And so when they were told that the war ended, they were asked to gather, all the ammo, everything that they had, so that stuff could be inventoried.
Right.
And so they did that, save for the grenades, which they stashed somewhere else. And so his answer when asked, what he did when the war ended, they went fishing. With grenades.
With grenades. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
It is just a wonderful story. I mean, to hear it in his words, he talked about how they figured out if, they were shallower, if they held on to him longer and they, exploded in shallower water, then they got more fish that way.
Oh, dear.
And yeah, maybe I shouldn't be saying this out loud.
Yeah, kids don't do this. Wow.
But he just said, we ate a lot of fish for 3 days.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
It was just a wonderful time.
And, there are so many stories like these out there that, unfortunately, like with my dad, when he passed, they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so neat that you guys are capturing this information, not only for the national part, but for the families.
Exactly.
Because I never heard any stories, and I'm sure the grandchildren and great-grandchildren who are going to be around after they leave, they'll get to hear these stories. And that puts a face and a personality to a name.
Yes.
Because you might say, well, yeah, that was my grandpa, and all you have is a name or my great-grandfather. But when you get to hear the story and maybe see the story, then that's a person. That's just not a name. That is just so neat.
True.
So neat.
And we get fun stories too. We had Chester a couple years ago, this just darling 95-year-old World War II vet. And he talked about how he and his brother went down to join the Navy because, they didn't want to be drafted.
Uh-huh.
So they joined the Navy instead. Well, they were going through all the physicals and the in-doc stuff. And he was really concerned because he had flat feet. Well, somehow he got through that part, and so he thought he was home free when all of a sudden his name came over the loudspeaker to report back to this particular section, and so he just knew that's what it was for, and that they were going to recheck him. So he made his brother go in his place, and sure enough, he had to walk back and forth, back and forth, back and forth while they checked his feet, and his brother had the right.
Yeah.
Right.
The arches.
The arches, yeah. And so they passed him through, and that's how Chester got into the Navy.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I remember that flat feet, if you had flat feet, you were out.
Mm-hmm.
My heavens. And a lot of people, they fake their age so they could get in.
Oh, yes, my grandpa did that, and he joined at 16.
Oh, my goodness. Well, and at that time, there was not the world travel like we have now. That, you can get in your car and travel across the country in a matter of a couple of days. I mean, it was not that kind of travel-friendly atmosphere. So if you wanted to go anywhere, the military was really the only way that a lot of people had to see something other than the town they grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing the world, yeah, and they pushed that. See the world, join the Navy or the Army or whatever.
No, it's still a very real draw, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, if somebody would want to have their story captured, or have a relative that they want to capture that story, or any of the facilities that are out there, because a lot of these privately owned facilities have a lot of veterans in them. What do they do if they want to access this service?
Just call us. Or we also have an email address. It's vetslegacyproject@yahoo.com. And so we monitor that and answer those and get people set up for interviews all the time.
That is just, I think that is so cool. When I heard about this, I thought, oh, yeah, I like that. Well, what other, tell me about what else, because I know you guys do a lot of stuff, and the volunteer thing. And what if they want to volunteer to go into the Spokane VA or the Veterans Home in Spokane? Can they just give you guys a call and say, I want to do this? Or?
Absolutely. They can actually sign up to volunteer on our website, which is inwredcross.org. You can call me. I can send out a volunteer application.
What kind of commitment do you have to make in order to do that? Do I have to say I'm going to go 3 days a week, or...
We have volunteers that are active 2 or 3 days a week. We have volunteers that can give one afternoon a month.
Okay. So it really doesn't matter how much time.
Anything and everything. Yeah.
Wow. That would be something really neat to do. Do you have young people that come through and volunteer?
We do.
How young can someone be to come in to volunteer?
It depends on the activity. Like I said, at the Veterans Home for our monthly activities, a lot of people bring their children and grandchildren. So we've had 3-year-olds there coloring Easter eggs with the veterans. We have pretty active teenagers. We have a Red Cross Youth Corps that has been pretty active.
Oh, really?
And those are all high school age students.
Because I know there's, with the summer approaching, hopefully it'll be summer soon, a lot of high schoolers are looking for things to get their volunteer hours.
Exactly.
And so this would be a good thing for them to do. And they would just call the main office and they could get information on that?
We have a volunteer services director. Anybody there can help with information on that.
Very interesting, very interesting. What else do you all do? I mean, every time I ask that, you come up with something else that's really neat.
Well, I talked a little bit about our veteran outreach. We also have lots of programs for military families, active military families.
Okay.
Yes. We have an office on Fairchild Air Force Base, so we're there 2 days a week to kind of serve that population. One of our most popular programs is the Flat Daddy, Flat Mommy program.
What's that?
Have you seen those?
No, I don't know. Tell me what it is, and I'll tell you if I've heard of it.
Well, basically, we take a picture of a deploying service member, and we blow them up life size, at least from the waist up, and then make them into cardboard cutouts. And then we give them to their family so that, they can still be a part of everything while they're deployed. So they're life-size cardboard cutouts of the deployed service member.
I have seen that because I believe my daughter had something like that when her husband was deployed. And I remember seeing pictures of the cutout at the dinner table and different events and stuff that Daddy was still there. He may not have been there physically, but emotionally he was there, and there's his picture. He's there. That's really neat.
Some people think they're a little bit creepy, but I'll tell you, I get to see kids come in and pick these up every week, and to see a 2 or 3 year old, their kids are so hands-on and tangible. It's just so cool to see them come in and, recognize their mommy or daddy, and they just grab onto them and love on them. And parents are telling us that they're sitting down and reading books with them and talking to them. We get great pictures and stories, and it's just a small way to help maintain that connectedness during deployment.
Especially, you can have a picture of someone in your mind, but sometimes that picture starts to fade if you're not able to see them. And so for a child, that would be very important. That is really neat. I wasn't aware the Red Cross was the ones that did that.
There are several organizations that do them, but we've been able to partner with Fairchild Air Force Base to offer these free of charge to families of deploying service members.
Wow, very interesting. Well, we need to take another break, but we will return with some more interesting information about the American Red Cross. We'll be right back. That's kind of neat. My daughter has one. It's like a stuffed animal kind of.
The daddy dolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen it over there. That's kind of neat. Okay, what else do you want to talk about?
Let's talk a little bit more about those, just because they're fun and there's some good stories. And then we have coping with deployments classes. We have reconnections, which are reintegration workshops for families. We can talk about emergency communications, volunteer opportunities.
Okay, because this is going to be the last segment, so I want to make
Already?
sure. Wow. Yeah. See? We just sit here and we start talking, and I think it helps
quickly.
that we look at each other and talk, because then it's more of a conversation.
Yeah.
And it goes real quick.
Yeah. I didn't know I had that much to say.
Well, we're doing good. And I have had people call looking, they have teenagers that they need to get volunteer time in during the summer. So I'm going to send them over to you guys. I just had one this past week call.
Yeah, my son comes in with me all the time.
Maybe I'll send my granddaughter. She's trying to figure out what she's going to do in the summer. She's 17. Angie's daughter. Okay, you ready? And we are back. This is Connie Clark with Home Helpers, and you are listening to The Senior Moment. And I have Kirsten Hess with the American Red Cross. And we've been talking about a whole bunch of different things that the American Red Cross does. And the last one, what was it called? A flat daddy? Is that
pancake parents or flat daddy, flat mommy? Yeah.
Pancake parents. And that's the life-size cutout that you all do of the service person that has been deployed for the children.
Yes, I don't take any responsibility for any, psychological developments for having a two-dimensional parent, but
But it is kind of neat because I've seen pictures, and you said that the children sit and read stories to them and everything, just as though their mommy or daddy is really there.
Mm-hmm.
That is just so neat.
We get great stories from people, whether it's, people talking about their teenagers taking target practice at them in the backyard.
Oh, well, yeah, that would be different.
But we had one mom that had, I think their daughter was just under a year when her husband deployed for 7 or 8 months. And they really interacted with their flat daddy on a daily basis while he was gone. And, he was part of every activity that they did. And when he got home, we were fortunate enough to be there when the plane came in and all the families were waiting in the hangar. And this little girl saw her dad from probably 100 feet away and just wrestled herself out of her mom's arms and went running to her father. Talk about the tears.
And she probably would not have recognized him had it not been for that.
Well, that's what her mom told us, that she really felt that it was because of that, because she had that constant, recognition and just connectedness through this cardboard cutout that, she was able to.
She knew what he looked like.
Yeah.
And, the tears. I can, yeah.
But we see flat daddies everywhere. I saw one watching the Lilac Parade last month.
Oh, wow.
We saw one running Bloomsday. People are taking them everywhere and kind of treating it like a flat Stanley and kind of, taking a passport photo book of all the places. I got a Christmas card with a flat daddy as the stand-in and their family portrait.
Oh, how cute. That's really neat.
We had a service member who was deployed to Afghanistan and actually sent me a picture from Afghanistan and asked us to make one so that he could be in the audience when his fiancée graduated from nursing school.
Aww. That is just so wonderful.
It's just a simple program that, really has tremendous impact.
Yeah, and, it was probably someone's who'd have thought kind of brainchild. Why don't we do this kind of thing? Mm-hmm. That is really neat. And you all do a lot of things, too, for when the service person comes back from being on active duty. What kind of talk about that program?
We do. We have, we actually have a psychological first aid coping with deployments class that we offer as service members are deployed. And it just kind of covers the challenges associated with deployment.
Is that just for the service member or for their family left behind?
It actually covers both sides, and we encourage people to come together prior to deployment if they can, because it really covers what the family is going to experience on this end, but also what the service member will experience on their end so that they can kind of, gain some understanding and, recognize that it's difficult on both sides. And, there is no normal, there is no standard for everybody. And there are challenges to cope with. It doesn't matter how many times you've experienced deployment. It doesn't get easier. Those challenges just change. And so this class really addresses those. And it also has a children's component in that it addresses kind of changes that you'll see developmentally from birth through age 18. It's very comprehensive.
Because it does affect the children that their parent is gone.
And if you can recognize those and, be proactive in addressing those challenges rather than just reactive or, not recognizing when...
Not understanding what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And those are all taught by licensed mental health professionals. And again, offered free of charge to all families experiencing deployment.
And then when they come back, there is issues because I know my husband has gone through it and my daughter has gone through it with her husband, that, life has continued on here. We just kind of chug along like the little train. And in the meantime, that person has been in a different country with different customs, totally different atmosphere, different challenges. And now they come from that atmosphere back to the little train that's been chugging along. Right. And it's really hard to step back in and continue where you left off, so to speak.
It is really difficult, and life has been turned on end for both parties in many cases, and everybody talks about the new normal. Well, a friend of mine said last week, there is no normal, there is no new normal.
There's just craziness.
Yeah. I mean, life is a constant change, and so when you add deployment into that, those reintegration challenges can be extremely difficult. So everybody comes back and there's this wonderful honeymoon period. You're excited to see each other, you're excited to be together, and unfortunately, and I'm speaking from experience, that comes to an abrupt halt way before you're ready.
Day-to-day pressures start back in again.
Yes.
And now the challenge is, you're emotionally not really ready for that. Mm-hmm. So do you have classes and things like that for the families and for the person when they come back?
We do. The Red Cross has developed a series of reconnections workshops. These were developed through a grant that Walmart gave us, actually. And so there are currently 5 topics that address things like communicating clearly, like recognizing and managing stress, recognizing changes with children, and they're designed to be short, 90-minute workshops, small group setting. It's not, a group therapy session or anything like that. People tend to shy away from the stigma associated with that. But they're just tool-building workshops that really give hands-on tips and ideas and, proven things for people to bring into that relationship and just help make that transition a little bit easier.
Now, when they come back, is this something they have to go out and pursue, or is it something that the military says you must attend, or where does that fall in all of that?
We're trying to get the word out as much as we can. I mean, we'd love to be able to make things like that mandatory.
So they have to pursue those classes and stuff. That's not something that they have to check off their list,
When military members come back, as you probably know, they go through reintegration, which may be, depending on how long they've been gone and where they've been, it may be a 2-hour class, it may be a week-long
debriefing
class.
Kind of thing, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But what we found was that there was nothing for the family member, and they're experiencing these same challenges, as they're coming back together following a deployment. And so these classes are designed for, husband and wife to come together, or family members. We've had parents come, fiancés, significant others. And it's just, a comfortable small group setting to get some more tools in your toolbox to help build that resiliency within your family,
So even if I could see, someone comes back home and now a month later they're going to try this, but could they go into these classes a year after they've come back?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So there's
They're
no
open
time
anytime.
limit.
We'll do them on demand. Absolutely.
Okay. So even if the person has been back for a year or 2 years, they can still have these available that them and their family can go to.
Absolutely. And sometimes, things don't come up for a while. Things might be totally fine the first 3, 4, or 5 months. And then little things start to pop up here and there. And so, I just really encourage people to reach out to those resources that are available. Nobody gets married thinking, oh, yay, I get to be a single parent or be on my own for 6 or 8 or 12 months,
Well, and too, I remember back when my son-in-law and my daughter were married, and he was in the military, and she would always refer to it as his job, his work. It was never that he's in harm's way or anything like that. And the first few times that he was deployed, she was just by herself, and I don't really think she saw the danger in what he was doing. He was just gone, like an out-of-town job, and then several months later he'd come back home and, they'd continue on. And it wasn't until several years into their marriage that something happened on one of his deployments to a group he was in or on the base he was on or something, and people were killed. And all of a sudden, it hit her like a brick that, oh my gosh, he's not just over there working. He is actually in harm's way, and something really could happen to him. And I think that was like a, oh my gosh, kind of moment for her and for her children as well. And it became something different than him just being gone to, oh my gosh, something could really happen to him while he's gone. And it was a whole new realization when he'd leave that something really could happen. He may not come back, you know. And I think a lot of times you marry into a military, person's in the military, oh yeah, well, you know, he's going to go off and do his thing, but he's safe or she's safe, and then they'll be back. And when things start happening, that does put stress on the people left behind. And when they do come back and the family says, well, this isn't the same person that left because they've been through experiences. Now there's all these emotional issues to deal with when they come back. And it's not easy.
It's not easy
to deal with that. Even if you've set yourself to, oh, well, I can do this, you know, or it's not easy to deal with all those issues that have happened on both sides of the pond, so to speak, while the person's been gone.
And like I said, every single deployment is different, and it affects you differently. You know, children are different ages, and spouses are at different stages. Your marriage is at different stages, but, you know, that's very true. I was married to the Navy for 20 years, and we were with Marine Corps Special Ops, and the deployments were continual. And he'd be gone for 4 weeks, having no idea where he was, you know,
or what he was
doing, and then home for a couple of weeks, and then gone for 3 months, and then, you know, home for 6 months maybe, and then deployed for 9 months. It was absolutely constant, and every time they come back, you're kind of just on eggshells for a while, you know, waiting to see what this return is going to be like and how, you know, things are going to be this time. And we didn't have the tools and resources available 20 years ago that we have now. And so I just so encourage people to take advantage of what's out there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I wasn't aware that the American Red Cross had anything like this available for the military. You're just enlightening me all over the place here. Because you normally think of the American Red Cross in that, okay, here comes a hurricane, and now you're going to run in there and hand out sandwiches, and that's it. But there's so much more to the American Red Cross than just showing up when a hurricane comes through or a flood comes through or something like that.
But we do that. We have amazing volunteers that respond. Actually, we respond on average locally every 24 to 48 hours to single-family home fires or apartment fires. And so our volunteers are on the scene within 30 minutes. They're starting to help that family pick up the pieces, whether it's 2 in the afternoon or 2 in the morning. You know, they're right there. They carry teddy bears in their trunks to comfort children. They can call in nurses to refill prescriptions or get canes or walkers. And they, you know, will get them set up with a place to stay, shelter and clothing, work with them longer term to file insurance claims or, you know, get new furniture, clothing, whatever they need. So
the American Red Cross has really grown into a very large organization from running messages on the battlefield.
We have.
The name American Red Cross, they're in the United States. Do you know how many other countries they're in, or they're across the world? Is that correct?
We are worldwide, yes. I couldn't tell you the number of countries, but we do work closely on international disasters as well.
Do you have these kinds of services to the military in other countries?
We have service armed forces stations on most of the larger military bases around the world. So in Europe, in the Pacific, and also in Afghanistan and Kuwait. We actually have Red Cross personnel on the ground at those bases.
And you were saying something when we were in the break about emergency communications. That's something else you all do. What is that?
That's really our direct service component of our Service to Armed Forces program. And it's, again, something that we've been doing for more than 100 years. So if a military family experiences a crisis or emergency while the service member is deployed, they can call the Red Cross, and we take all of that information. We'll call and verify directly with a doctor or hospital, whatever the case may be.
That the situation really exists.
And then we send that information through to the service member and their command. So it helps commanders well, number one, it connects families when they're in the midst of an emergency and really need that. But it also helps commands decide whether or not to send a service member home on emergency leave, because they know if they get a Red Cross message, this is accurate, verified information that they can just act on. You know, they don't have an airman or a young Marine coming to them with a Facebook post that says, you know, my granddad's in ICU, can I go home?
Right.
And they're at the middle of a FOB in Afghanistan. It just gives that. The Red Cross is the only agency authorized to provide that verification to the military. And so emergency leave in the military is kind of synonymous with Red Cross messages. And that's a service that we provide 24/7 worldwide.
Wow, I wasn't aware of that. You all do a lot. You are probably just so very busy.
Oh, but it's wonderful. I absolutely love my job. I love serving our military members and veterans. And it's amazing to be able to go to work every day and
enjoy what you're doing. Well,
yeah.
and how we started this out was talking about those stories. And you get to probably meet some of the most interesting people and hear some of the neatest stories of their lives. You know, that probably
I feel very, very blessed and way too fortunate.
No, you're not way too fortunate. You are very fortunate, and that's a good thing.
Very
now,
blessed.
If someone wants to get information on any of the things that we've talked about this afternoon, how can they get in contact with the American Red Cross to do the volunteers, to tell the stories, to find out information about the classes, all of that? How do they do that?
Just call me. I would love to talk to you and help you get involved in some of these programs and just help us serve our military that much better.
Okay, what kind of number can they get in contact with you on?
My phone number is area code 509-326-3330, extension 221.
And then you said there's a website that they can go on to find out more information.
For more information about volunteering, you can go to inwredcross.org. Yes.
Okay.
And
some of the program information is on there also?
Actually, all of our volunteer opportunities are listed on there. You can fill out the volunteer application online, and then we'll contact you directly and bring you in and kind of see where your interests lie and what kind of time you have available and find just the right fit.
I think it's fantastic. And again, if you have teenagers that are looking for volunteer things to do throughout the summer, this is a great opportunity for them to learn some history.
Absolutely.
And to help some folks out. That would be really neat. Well, thank you for being with me this afternoon. I've learned so much talking to you. And if you want any more information on any of these programs, please give the American Red Cross a call. They do such wonderful work, and they really help the people that protect us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Connie. It's just been wonderful.
And you all have a wonderful afternoon.